This week on the show, our look at the impact the global pandemic is having on international travel.
I'm stranded. Virgin cancelled my flight yesterday.
We're just trapped in our hotel for what seems like 15 days.
I would love to get home, yeah.
What are your rights if you've had trips cancelled? How do you cope if you're stuck in a country in lockdown? And just what does the future hold for all our travels? Just a year ago, and the headlines from places like Paris and Venice were very different. We all learned the word over-tourism as we saw the cafes and attractions of some of our most loved places heaving with holidaymakers. It's a very different picture now. Many destinations are in lockdown as people are being asked to stay at home to protect their health and that of others. It means that tourists are being left stranded, holidays cancelled, and airline bosses are predicting a grim future. It's unsettling to see some of the biggest and most popular attractions totally deserted. The Taj Mahal, Eiffel Tower, even the popular Disney parks in the US, all closed. The streets, especially in the European capitals, are looking empty. Paris and Madrid have already been on lockdown for most of this week.
I've been 5 days so far, locked down in my own home. The real problem is that we don't know how long are we gonna be here. I'm one of the lucky ones because I live with my wife, so we are together here. I think that's very important. I fear for people who live alone, especially for old people. Hola!
Hola, cariño, ¿qué tal?
My mom lives in a different city in Spain, and she's there all by herself. She's 75 years old, and that worries me. On the positive note, this crisis is bringing out the best of people. There is somebody we know. It's an old woman, 80 years old.
Charo?
And it was her birthday. The neighbors left a little birthday cake with a candle. The old woman opened the door, saw the cake, and everybody, all the neighbors in the courtyard start singing happy birthday to her. And she was very emotional, and it was incredible. Every night at 8 o'clock, everybody goes out to the balconies, or they open the windows, and everybody claps. And we give this round of applause for the people who are working in hospitals, people who are working in the chemists, people who are trying, who are really fighting this disease. So that's always a very special and emotional moment. I never seen Madrid like this.
Many governments, including the British Foreign Office, have warned against non-essential travel anywhere in the world. Airlines are struggling. Many have grounded up to 90% of their fleets. Research group, the Centre for Aviation, says without a bailout, most of the world's carriers will be bankrupt by May. Borders are closing. The EU, Australia and New Zealand are among the countries to stop foreign arrivals. Many cruise ships have ended their tours and flown all their passengers home. Sporting events the world over have been cancelled. Football's European Championships, golf's PGA Championship and the opening races of the Formula One season are all off. One of the most immediate problems is the number of travellers who found themselves stranded abroad, miles from home. We've been speaking to a number of you caught in that situation.
My situation is I'm stranded. Virgin cancelled my flight yesterday, due to leave at 6:25 p.m. from Miami, and I was told the day before that of the cancellation.
The advice we've been given has been quite confusing. I mean, I'm obviously not a fluent Italian speaker, so that's partly my fault. But in general, the advice given has changed every few days and it varies by region quite a lot.
Now it's not possible to travel to the neighbouring islands or into the city unless you have a reason to do so. We also have curfew in place here between 10 p.m. and 5 a.m.
We just want to get back to friends and family. You know, I've got a new grandson who's going to be 6 months old tomorrow. I haven't seen him for 6 weeks now.
I'm being told that I can book an alternative flight, but I don't know if that's with the same provider. Can I go with a different airline like BA? Will I be reimbursed for doing that?
It is unsettling. There's so much happening everywhere. It's very easy to get caught up in the panic too when you speak to people.
I would love to get home, yeah.
Here I am right now in Travel Show HQ in London, and I'm joined by someone who hopefully will be able to untangle some of this and offer some clarity too. That's our global guru, Simon Calder. Hello, Simon. You've just returned from the Middle East. How was that journey? Were you worried?
Pretty much from the off, it started falling apart. My flight from Saudi Arabia to Cairo was cancelled, so I ended up travelling overland through Saudi Arabia, crossing Jordan, Israel, which was just about to ban anyone from abroad, and across the Sinai Desert to Cairo, and found myself coming up against another flight ban that was coming into effect in a couple of days' time. Like many other people, I had little choice but to go straight to Cairo airport and see what I could find to get out, really at any price. I talked to many travellers in the same position, including Nikki Fernandez.
So we were supposed to be flying out on Saturday the 21st, but then we heard first thing this morning from my mum that actually all flights from Thursday onwards were being cancelled from Cairo, so we've had to rush to get our flight sooner.
And was it a straightforward matter? Did the airline change your flight okay?
No, absolutely not. So we heard nothing from Expedia, who we booked through, or from Egypt Air, who we were flying with, so we had to go through our concierge, and we were advised to go to the embassy, but the British Embassy were not opening the doors, despite there being a queue of us and some other nationals. So they gave us the Home Office number, telephoned those, but they didn't respond. Our insurance weren't answering and Expedia weren't answering either. So eventually we just had to come straight to the airport to try and book an earlier flight.
And clearly you've done that. How much did it cost?
So an additional £630 to switch each to get an earlier flight.
So Simon, there are lots of people who are stuck somewhere and many think they've lost lots of money. What's your advice?
It's such an unusual situation that at this stage, it's really a question of fly first, ask questions later. There's all kinds of experiences of people where the passenger rights rules should take effect, but the airlines are simply ignoring them. They have very little choice, they say. The situation is completely out of control. Travel insurance too. Of course, many people are assuming that their problems will be covered by that, but unfortunately it won't be for possibly weeks or months, and when the dust has settled and people actually find out what they can claim back. But it's going to leave many people out of pocket, and of course, sadly, many great travel professionals out of work.
But your advice is get that flight, get home.
Very much so. If you know that the government of the country that you're in is banning international flights in 2 days' time, just get online, find a flight, in extremis, go to the airport and just see what you can find. Most people, I hope, will be able to get out.
And tell me, Simon, what are the most common problems hitting your inbox at the moment?
Absolutely the most pressing is, I'm in country X, I'm trying to get home, help, what do I do? And all I can say is, assume you won't get any help from your airline, from your insurance company, even from your embassy. You have to make the decisions now. There is no time to lose. Spend what you need to, get family and friends to pay for your ticket, but just get yourself out and then ask questions later.
Nikki was referring to the fact that she couldn't get through to her own embassy. Is that common? Isn't that worrying?
The normal workload at consular department of an embassy is a handful of people every week, maybe lost passports, getting into trouble with the law, sickness case. They are simply not cut out for the situation of thousands, sometimes hundreds of thousands of nationals all be in the same position of having to leave the country at top speed. So I'm not really surprised that this is happening. The systems we have in place were simply never designed for the worst emergency that's ever happened in travel.
For the moment, Simon, thank you very much indeed. Still to come, a closer look at what this could mean for airlines as some ground their entire international fleets. And with many people still stuck abroad and others waiting for compensation, we put some quickfire questions to our global guru. Now, if you're a regular viewer, you'll know that we have a little travel show family who live and work all over the planet. And like many other people, they've been facing a complicated international travel situation, not to mention the various stages of lockdown, isolation and worry. So we thought it'd be a good idea to catch up with them to see how they've been getting on.
Hey, it's Mike, and I'm here in the airport in Cairo, where it seems like business as usual for the most part, just more masks and more gloves. I fully expect that to change, though, once I get to Heathrow and Toronto Pearson Airport, where I've heard things are crazy. My story didn't start here in Cairo, though. It started in Yemen, an island off of Yemen called Socotra, which is kind of like the Galapagos of the Indian Ocean. A dream trip I had planned for months, and I had just gotten there. I was 3 days in, and I get a knock on my tent at like 3 or 4 a.m. saying, hey, there's one flight off the island. There'll be no more indefinitely, and you should probably be on it.
Hi, it's Carmen here in Tokyo, where I feel it's a lot calmer than what I'm seeing elsewhere in the world. I guess Japan had one of the first few cases of the coronavirus, so we've been living with these measures for quite some time, so I think the panic buying seems to have stopped. There is a little bit of social distancing, but I don't feel there really is, because look, I'm at the park, and as you can see behind me, it's pretty busy. As a travel journalist, I'm meant to be right now preparing for my trip to Chile in South America, and of course that's not going to happen because the BBC, and like most other companies, have cancelled all non-essential travel.
This is Krista in Hertfordshire at home. I was supposed to be in Rome last week, and next week was supposed to be a trip to Thailand, but both of course have been now cancelled. The other reason I'm at home is a few days ago I started to get a few symptoms, a cough, and though I'm almost certain it was nothing to do with the coronavirus, I self-quarantined. I'm on day 5 currently, and who knows how many will be to come. And just really hoping this can be resolved as soon as possible so that we can get back out there on the road and travel the world, which is what we love doing.
Well, that's how the current crisis is affecting members of the travel show team. But of course, the impact is far wider than that, with hotels, cruise liners and restaurants all facing an uncertain future. And perhaps when it comes to lost revenue, the biggest impact will be felt by the airline industry. It's estimated 1 in 10 jobs worldwide are dependent on tourism. In many places, especially in the developing world, it's now in the top 2 or 3 industries. Tens, if not hundreds of millions depend on it for their livelihood. Many of these people now face unemployment. Airline bosses say the impact is comparable to the 2008 global financial crisis, the SARS outbreak and 9/11. But it's widely accepted this is far worse and the effect will be long-term.
We propose to introduce a temporary restriction on non-essential travel to the European Union.
A travel ban will be placed on all non-residents, non-Australian citizens coming to Australia.
We will be suspending all travel from Europe to the United States for the next 30 days.
The boss of British Airways has described the situation as a crisis of global proportions, like no other we have known. And joining me now is Paul Charles, an aviation analyst and communications expert who's worked in the airline industry for 20 years or so. Paul, thanks for joining us. As an expert, you've helped airlines steer their way through crises before, but in terms of scale, how would you compare this current situation with those?
This is seismic, and airlines are on their knees. They've never faced anything on this scale, and several of them are on a cliff edge anyway because of the position they were in before the coronavirus outbreak occurred.
So there's no real precedent to this. This is unparalleled.
It's unparalleled. There's no precedent. The ash cloud, the financial crisis, SARS, MERS, all of those were much smaller scale, and also some of them were regional. They weren't global. And the issue here is that we're dealing with a global crisis. That's why you've seen airlines cut 80 to 90% of their capacity. They're running threadbare operations in most cases, and they're not sure they will ever get back to where they were at the start of 2020. I think we may be at that moment where governments who are clearly stretched, do not have all the resources in the world, will have to say, we do have to pick and choose in this industry. Is it better to save one major airline in a country and to save a sector, rather than let the whole sector go under? And I think they're looking at airlines and saying, well, actually, maybe some do have to fail, not just in the UK, not just in Europe, but globally. And that's going to be a very testing period for some airline executives.
How do you think airlines are responding to passenger worries?
Well, airline customer services teams have never been under so much pressure. This is unprecedented, so understandably they're struggling to cope. Really, the best advice is not to contact your airline until, say, 3 days before you're due to travel if you have a booking already. There's no point clogging up the phone lines, all their emails, by contacting them now if you're due to fly in 6 months' time. They probably don't have the answers yet. And really, you don't need an answer at this stage. You can wait a bit longer. But if you're flying within 72 hours, then you should be trying to contact them, and that's where you have to prioritise. So the airlines themselves are saying, please don't talk to us until it's 72 hours before your flight, and help us to manage all of these inquiries. We'll get through them, but it will take some time. We will get through this. We have an inherent desire to travel. It's in our DNA. The virus is not going to kill that off. We will want to travel again, and the industry will recover.
We return now to more of your stories of being stuck abroad. We had a number of you get in touch from Peru after the borders closed on Monday.
The situation in Cusco is that the borders have all been shut down over a very short period of time, so we weren't really given any warning and everything was cancelled. We literally don't know anything else. We're just trapped in our hotel for what seems like 15 days, but could be longer.
I'm in lockdown, so the only reason I'm allowed out is to go to a shop to get food or to go to a chemist, but otherwise I'm supposed to stay inside and I'll be stuck here for a while.
The biggest concern for us is the lack of help we receive from the British government. All the embassies in Peru, of which there's only one, has now closed down for 15 days due to the virus spreading.
I'm feeling really frustrated at the lack of information, and actually even the responses on Twitter from different people whenever they're asking questions, like robot responses, every time it's just saying the same thing. Talk to your flight company, no matter what the person's asked.
At the moment we're trying to remain positive. We were lucky enough to secure an Airbnb for the 2 weeks that the country is supposed to be shut down until the 1st of April.
The advice I would give to any travellers stuck overseas right now is probably to get on Twitter and to see if there are other people in similar situations, because I have certainly found that banding together with people in the same situations, in the same countries, even in the same cities, has been really, really good, really supportive. We've shared advice and almost come together as a force. You're a much stronger voice if you can get together than if you're on your own.
Just some of the people who contacted us after finding themselves stranded a long way from home because of the current crisis. I'm joined again now by Simon Calder, our global guru, who can hopefully offer some advice. A lot of people are saying they're having trouble getting through to their airlines. One person says they were on hold on the phone for 3 hours. What would your advice be if you can't get in touch with your carrier? Paul Charles was saying a moment ago that many airlines are just simply overwhelmed.
They certainly are. If you've given it your best shot and you could not get an answer in a reasonable time, then I'm afraid you have to make your best decisions, spend whatever you need to, keep receipts and make a reasonable claim afterwards. And by the way, if you're going and trying to sort things out online, in many cases airlines are saying, oh, just accept a voucher for future travel. If your flight actually gets cancelled, which is happening an awful lot, you're entitled to a cash refund. A voucher might not do you any good, so hold out for real money.
Mick also tweeted us saying, I had a holiday to Venice booked to leave 2 weeks ago. UK government advice was not to travel to northern Italy, so why have my insurance company rejected my claim? So Simon, how would you say that insurance companies are responding to the situation, and what would your advice to Mick be?
Travel insurers, like everybody else, are in uncharted territory. They're understaffed, their finances are under tremendous pressure, so it doesn't surprise me that Mick's been refused. In his specific case, he can go to the Financial Ombudsman Service in the UK, who, if they think he's got a valid claim, will make the insurer pay it. Of course, the travel show has viewers around the world, and there will be local laws which may or may not offer some help. All I can say is that the insurance industry is not going to be in a hurry to pay people out, because this is going to cost it billions.
Rugby fan Nick Smith tweeted from the UK after a Six Nations match was cancelled in Paris. He says, I got a full refund from my hotel, but the train company are charging me £70 to change my rail ticket and offering no refund. What would your advice to Nick be?
We've heard from so many sports fans who've been planning trips based on a particular event which has then been cancelled, and they're saying, what do we do? I'm afraid, in Nick's case and many others, the train company is perfectly able to take him to Paris and back. The fact that he doesn't want to go, they would say, isn't our problem, and they are applying their terms and conditions as they're entitled to do. So the only thing I can say to Nick is, well, at least be glad you got a refund on the hotel.
Finally, a tweet from Anthony Johnson, who told us, I've just ended a trip in southern Argentina. It took 4 days and 4 flights to finally get home. I'd like to send my appreciation to all airline staff still working across the world. Without them, I would never have got home.
That's a great story, and all the way through at a time when the industry of human happiness has never felt so miserable, and there's been so much despair that people who very sadly know their jobs are on the line have still been delivering absolutely top-class, professional, safe service to get people where they need to be.
Well, a positive note to end on in a pretty negative situation. Thanks for joining us, Simon. Like many of you, we've had to cancel or postpone many of our travel plans, which means that the travel show will be looking a little bit different, for the time being at least. But fingers crossed, we'll soon be on the road again, doing what we love doing, making programmes that hopefully you enjoy. From me, Rajan Datar, and the rest of the Travel Show team, wherever they are in the world right now, it's goodbye.